This further oral activity will be based on an excerpt from William Shakespeare's tragedy Julius Caesar, specifically Act 1, Scene 1. The theme of the differences between the commoners and the aristocrats is generally inherent to Shakespeare, and Julius Caesar is not an exception. In this play, language is used as an instrument to show social and class differences in multiple differing ways. It is quite typical for Shakespearean drama to emphasize class distinction through the variation between prose and verse, with commoners using the former and noblemen the latter. This is evident in the following quote. As is evident, the cobbler speaks in prose, meaning that his replica does not have a rhythm to it, while Morellus and Flavius, the tribunes, speak mostly in iambic pentameter, indicating their higher social standing. This occurs all throughout the play. The patricians speak in verse and the plebeians in prose. With verse being considered more elegant, sophisticated, and intelligent, and prose more rough and simplistic, Shakespeare uses this difference in language in order to subtly highlight the huge gap in between these social classes of ancient Rome. The class distinction is also made evident through the disdainful demeanor of the aristocracy towards the common folk, in turn displayed through language. Hence, home you idle creatures, get you home. Is this a holiday? In this case, Flavius uses the word creatures in order to address the plebeians. This is clearly demeaning and offensive, and further emphasis is put on the differences between the blue-blooded and the commoners. In this case, the implication is that the members of the common demos are not human, rather they're idle creatures. The sentence structure used by Flavius is imperative, meaning that it commands, and it clearly defines his complete authority over the people. Hence, in this case means be gone, which is a disrespectful command, and moreover, a repetition is used afterwards with the word home, which is a crude way to deliver a message that may imply an intellectual inferiority of the people being spoken to. And finally, a rhetorical question, is this a holiday? Which once again reinforces Flavius' status as a superior. The supposed supremacy of Flavius over those people is further shown in the following question. Speak, what trade art thou? First of all, once again, Flavius commands the carpentier to tell him his occupation, in what today would be considered a derogatory fashion. In this case, the pronoun thou is used in order to address the carpentier. But in early modern English, thou was the informal way to address someone. It was impolite to use that pronoun with someone who wasn't of acquaintance, while you was the formal and proper way to address strangers. Obviously, in this case, Flavius chooses to use the informal pronoun, once again showing off his superiority, which, combined with the lack of any polite form such as please, tells the reader just how much superior these noblemen felt in regards to the commoners. The cobbler at a point says, "Nay, I beseech you, sir, be not out with me." As you can see in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, the commoners always address the nobility through the word you. Thus, once again, through the use of language, the nobility is elevated as a distinct social class, as the commoners feel the necessity to constantly call them with the formal pronoun. After Flavius addressed the carpentier, Morellus goes on to ask the cobbler, "You, sir, what trade are you?" In this case, a literary device of irony and sarcasm is utilized in order to once again show the extent to which the nobles felt superior to the commoners. In this case, the proper and formal you is used, and more importantly, the word sir is included in the sentence. Obviously, this can only be understood in an ironic way, meaning that Morellus is actually mocking the cobbler, and thus his higher social status is displayed in this way. Finally, another linguistic device that Shakespeare uses in order to show social and class differences in Act 1 is swearing. It obviously could never have been imagined that a commoner would use offensive language in regards to a member of a higher social class. Yet a nobleman could easily swear when addressing a plebeian. What trade, though, Nev? Don't note, Nev, what trade? This is clearly what occurs in this case. Morellus, offended by the lack of a straightforward answer from the cobbler, goes on to call him what in modern English would mean, "What trade, boy? You insolent rascal, what trade?" Repetition is used again in a disrespectful manner. Obviously, name-calling occurs, and the cobbler is called the boy, which is diminutive and serves to point out his inferiority due to social class. Interestingly enough, while in this case the nobleman continues speaking in verse, the manners in between the two social classes are reversed. Throughout the whole act, the commoners are extremely polite and timid, while the noblemen are rude and disrespectful despite using high language, which implies that they didn't even feel the need to keep their treasured manners in front of the common people, which once again reinforces their superiority. In the end, Shakespeare uses myriad linguistic and stylistic devices in order to effectively show the enormous gap in between the two tribunes and the common people, and thus uses language in order to show distinct social classes. Thank you.